Right now, as you listen to these words, a tiny fraction of a penny just left someone's bank account, not because they bought a coffee or paid a bill or placed an order, but simply because a server in Virginia hummed for a fraction of a millisecond. Most people believe the cloud is just an invisible sky, where you back up your vacation photos or store old documents. That is the biggest misconception in modern financial history. The truth? The cloud isn't in the sky at all. It is thousands of acres of concrete, steel, and underwater fiber optic cables, and it has quietly become the most profitable tax system in human history, controlled almost entirely by three American giants. Every time you stream a movie, book a flight, order food, or scroll through social media, you are paying rent, not directly, but through a hidden toll booth that sits behind nearly every business on Earth. In fact, if these server farms were turned off for just 24 hours, global finance would collapse instantly, hospitals would lose patient records, stock markets would freeze, and entire supply chains would simply vanish overnight. So how did three tech companies transform basic computing into a multi-hundred-billion-dollar empire? And why is it almost impossible for anyone to stop them? To understand where the real money comes from, you have to look at how businesses used to work. 20 years ago, if a company wanted to build a digital platform, they had to buy their own physical servers, they had to rent air-conditioned rooms, hire engineers, pay for massive electricity bills, and pray the hardware didn't crash. It was slow, ridiculously expensive, and wildly inefficient. If a retail website had a sudden surge of traffic during the holidays, their servers crashed. If they bought extra servers for that peak, those machines sat completely idle for the rest of the year. Then, an unexpected hero emerged from a totally unrelated business. Amazon, a company famous for selling books, realized something incredible. During most of the year, their massive e-commerce infrastructure was sitting half-empty, so they asked a radically simple question: what if, instead of letting those servers sit idle, we rented out small slices of our computing power to other companies? That single question gave birth to Amazon Web Services, or Oz, and it changed the global economy forever. What seemed like a modest side project quickly turned into a goldmine. Suddenly, a tiny startup operating out of a garage could access the exact same computing firepower as a Fortune 500 bank. No multi-million-dollar upfront investments, no physical hardware to buy, just pay a tiny fee for every second you actually use computing power. It felt like ultimate freedom, but it was actually the ultimate trap. Here is what most people completely miss about the revenue model of the cloud. On the surface, it looks like a simple utility bill, just like electricity or water. You use a gigabyte, you pay a few cents. But underneath that simple utility model lies a masterclass in long-term financial lock-in. When a startup begins using a cloud provider, it is cheap, unbelievably cheap. The cloud giants even give out hundreds of thousands of dollars in free compute credits to young companies, almost like a high-stakes casino giving out free chips. Why would they give away billions in free compute? Because once a business builds its software on Oz, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud, that business's entire digital nervous system becomes deeply woven into that specific cloud's ecosystem. They use their proprietary databases, their custom security tools, and their specialized code frameworks. And that brings us to the most powerful secret in modern business: switching costs. Imagine trying to move an entire skyscraper 3 inches to the left without disrupting the people living inside. That is what moving off a major cloud platform feels like for a mid-sized company. Moving petabytes of data out of a cloud system isn't just technically exhausting. It is intentionally made financially painful. Cloud providers charge almost nothing to bring your data into their system, but charge exorbitant fees, known as egress fees, if you ever decide to pack up and leave. So, companies stay, year after year, contract after contract. They don't just stay because they want to. They stay because leaving would cost them millions of dollars and months of potential downtime. It creates an incredible financial loop. A customer joins, grows their business, uses more compute power, pays a larger monthly check, and becomes more deeply locked in with every line of code they write. But wait, If running these massive data centers requires tens of billions of dollars in real estate, electricity, specialized microchips, and elite engineers, how do these companies generate such insane profit margins? That brings us to the hidden mechanics of capital expenditure versus recurring revenue. Building a modern data center is brutally expensive. A single facility can easily cost over $1 billion before a single customer even connects to it. They need backup diesel generators, specialized liquid cooling systems, direct access to power grids, and custom-designed silicon processors. This creates a massive barrier to entry that virtually no new competitor can ever cross. Who else has 30, 40, or $50 billion in liquid cash to drop on server farms every single year? Almost nobody. Once those massive facilities are built, the cost to serve one extra customer or process one extra gigabyte drops close to zero. This is where pure scale takes over. The fixed costs stay roughly the same, while the variable revenue scales straight into the stratosphere. That is why Oz, despite representing only a fraction of Amazon's overall revenue, historically accounts for the majority of Amazon's entire operating profit. The main retail store moves physical boxes for thin margins, while the cloud engine prints pure high-margin digital cash in the background. And Microsoft? They did something even cleverer. Microsoft realized they already had an enterprise empire inside every corporate boardroom on the planet with Windows, Office 365, and Teams. So, when pitching their cloud platform, Microsoft Azure, they didn't just sell compute power. They bundled it directly into the software contracts that Fortune 500 executives were already signing. If a multinational bank was already spending $50 million on Microsoft software, Azure was offered as a seamless, discounted extension. The corporate client didn't even have to look anywhere else. Google entered the arena with a different superpower: data and AI processing. They positioned Google Cloud as the ultimate brain for companies needing massive data analytics, machine learning, and cutting-edge intelligence tools. Together, these three American heavyweights created an oligopoly that commands over 65% of the global cloud market. Think about that for a second. Almost every major industry, from global banking to healthcare, defense contractors to entertainment streaming, relies on infrastructure owned by just three corporate headquarters on the west coast of the United States. They are no longer just tech companies. They are the digital utility companies of the 21st century, and just like traditional utility companies, their revenue model thrives on sheer predictability. In traditional business, sales ebb and flow with economic cycles. During a recession, consumers buy fewer cars, clothes, and luxury goods. But what happens to cloud consumption during a downturn? Businesses might slow down, but they can't simply shut down their databases. They can't stop processing user logins. They can't delete their financial records, and they can't unplug their online store. The cloud bill isn't optional. It is an absolute operational survival cost, even when companies actively try to trim their budgets. Cloud optimization itself often requires more specialized tools, which are, you guessed it, sold right back to them by the cloud providers. Now, you might be asking, what is the next major catalyst that will drive this multi-billion-dollar machine even higher? The answer is staring us right in the face. Artificial intelligence. Every single generative AI model, every large language model, every autonomous algorithm is wildly hungry for compute power. Training a cutting-edge AI model requires thousands of specialized microchips running continuously for months, consuming massive amounts of electricity and server bandwidth. And who owns the infrastructure required to host and train these models at scale? The exact same cloud providers. When an AI startup raises millions of dollars from venture capitalists, where does most of that capital actually go? It flows straight into the pockets of cloud providers to pay for GPU rental hours. The venture capitalists fund the AI startups. The AI startups buy cloud compute, and the cloud providers collect high-margin cash. Regardless of whether the AI startup succeeds or fails, it is the classic gold rush dynamic. Don't dig for gold, sell the pickaxes, and in the digital gold rush. The cloud providers own every pickaxe, every shovel, and the land everyone is digging on. However, This empire isn't entirely without risk, as these giants grow larger and more indispensable. They face growing pressure from international regulators. Governments in Europe and Asia are becoming deeply uncomfortable with the fact that their critical national infrastructure depends on a handful of American corporations. Concerns over data sovereignty, anti-competitive bundling, and massive market concentration are leading to new laws that could force these platforms to unbundle services or make it easier for customers to switch between providers. Then there is the sheer energy challenge. Data centers are consuming electricity at unprecedented rates. In some regions, the energy demand from new cloud facilities is straining local power grids to their absolute limits, forcing these tech giants to invest directly in nuclear power, solar farms, and geothermal energy just to keep their servers humming. Yet, despite these looming hurdles, the flywheel shows no signs of slowing down. Every new smart device, every autonomous car, every digitized medical record, and every AI agent created tomorrow will require somewhere to process, store, and execute its logic. They won't build their own infrastructure. They will rent it from the cloud. So, the next time you tap your phone to pay for something, or watch a video seamless stream in high definition, remember what is happening behind the curtain. You aren't just using the internet. You are participating in a quiet, continuous transfer of global wealth, where a fraction of every digital interaction flows directly into the modern financial bedrock of the American cloud empire.